Alright, getting ready to set up the trigger, and in here we can see some clipping. Look at this. Let's zoom up here. That's pretty close. Okay, see right there? Right here. See the clipping? It's cut into. It's like the gearbox or something's hitting into. It sits like this. So this was coming back like this, and you can see it's rubbing into the shell, so we could have some clipping there. If this touches the shell or anything, anywhere here, any metal, it will act like it's touching these two gate wires together. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off, and I'm going to solder this way for the gate wires for the MRF. So you can see the clipping there. So let's go ahead and do that. Yep. Alright, here's the...
No, C-O-M-E. You overcome or overcame?
You overcome something.
So it's C-O-M-E?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here's the trigger contacts with the gate wires, and you can see how I did this. So I just heat shrinked this in, so it's really nice. And then I heat shrinked right here. Because the magazine is going to probably be hitting in this area. And then you can see the trigger contacts. So this is connected very well. There's no way it's coming out. And this is smaller gauge than the other stuff. I'm not sure if this wiring came with the other MOSFET from Extreme Fire, but this is going to be pretty much obsolete. That stuff, and this stuff is more superior. So beautiful. I mean, so small for the gate wire, because it only needs to send a very small signal to say, hey, fire that motor. So let's move to the next thing. Alright, let's move on this part. I said alright all the time. Now to work on everything, I guess, for so far in here. I'm going to show a few design flaws with this version 3 selector, contacts and the cutoff and the trolley. Let's go ahead and start taking this apart. Going to work on it. And we need the big boy. Speaking of which, I think that's power connected, but I can't too close to it, no, I was doing something else. Wait a minute. That's jerk. Okay, so do this next. It's a long week for me. I pretty much have done in 5 hours or less. Do a lot of work quick. Usually all the parts, but I wait for the parts to get here, so if I get one day before I do all the last of the internal work. Now what you want to do, inspect everything. All the bushings are still in solid. Might ask why I'm inspecting everything. Anytime you run a gear break-in, especially when you run at very high speeds, I mean there's no load, it's going so freaking fast. You just want to check everything. Everything looks good. Pretty easy to check. Oh, about to lose a bushing already. Or excuse me, a shim. Okay, everything looks beautiful. Alright, now I'm going to try to put this back in place. And the one thing I do not like about this gearbox right now is this. I do not like having contacts right here. And what I could do is undo this and solder in here, or put something to connect it, and then mechanically mess with this right here. But I think it should be shooting okay. The problem with having something like this is this applies up pressure to this, and you can see the markings on the back of this. I say quite often too, slide this across here and it pushes it down. So what happens is, because there's no spring underneath these or anything to hold them up, eventually over time these things wear downwards and you slide your plate across and it no longer can register. So that eventually creates an issue. So that's why I do not like this type of design. Now, the newer design doesn't require any of that. It doesn't have this. Instead, it's mechanically pushing your trolley in position or whatever it's going to do. They're cut off. But for now, or excuse me, your safety bar too. But for now, this is the way. It's like a safety net, because if these aren't connected with this right here, then there's no way it's going to shoot, because this doesn't connect here, even if the trolley comes in here. So I don't really like that. It's kind of a flaw thing, or it will become an issue in the future, depending on how many times you move the selector plate and whatnot. But it'll be less of an issue with these gate wires. If you weren't using this MOSFET, it would be more of an issue, because it will be going through, all your electrical would be going through this right here too, and on the other end it would burn it up a little bit. So let me go ahead and get this in here if I can. I need the trolley in first before I close that part up. And now I'm going to show another flaw as soon as I lock this down. I don't think we're done. So I'm going to lock it here. Problem with having such a high rate of fire gun, anything above 30 starts to vibrate, and depending on how much it hits the front, it vibrates more. So some parts, like the front of the shell, I'll put a little bit of thread lock to hold it down just a tiny bit, so that it doesn't start untwisting itself, because I have seen a gearbox before untwisted the screws, I guess from vibration over a year, and the front of the gearbox shell is cracked. So probably because it just could not. Alright, so we got this in. Let me go ahead and show the second flaw mechanically with this type of trigger. So right here there is a tiny gap. I'm going to zoom up on that real quick. See how close we can get here so I can show you. Alright. See the tiny gap right here? There's going to be a gap right here. See it? That gap right there? Well, as soon as you push your trolley forward, if it connects the electricity right here, the cutoff will go, because of the high speed, up, and it can't pull your trolley out of the way. So your trigger will keep acting full auto right here until it gets far enough up that you can see it pushes it out of the way. What happens is it pushes this up and the trigger goes forward. And so on semi, you let go, the spring in the trigger resets the trigger back, and this is pulled back by its own spring. It's called the trolley spring. So it would be basically back to set like this. Now some AEGs, I have actually added material to either the cutoff or the trolley right here. And what that does is, as soon as you were to pull, if this cutoff is here, it would just pull it up. So let's say you go a little bit closer, it would pull it up, and your semi would always work, even on the slightest pull. So mechanically there is an issue here. You can see the huge gap if it connects to electricity. So we're going to check that real quick over here. Turn this around, and we push this forward here, and electricity is connected at, try to find out which point, right here. So we turn this over and it engages enough, just so you can see. It does engage enough. See right here? So you would not actually have that issue in here as easily. You might be able to barely get it at some point. Now another problem is sometimes this metal right here, excuse me, I'm trying to follow the camera. Sometimes this metal right here hits so quick and hard against the trolley, it impacts it and breaks off the slightest area where it's not really thick. And that happens a lot in the version 2 gearbox of the trolley. The cutoff will just boom, hit it, and it will break off a piece, and your semi will get less and less working right in that region. You'll also have a problem underneath the gear where the cutoff is. As the more and more you use it, right now it's perfectly fine, but the more and more you use it, it gets impacted and starts to grind it off. And it depends on the material. If you have really good cutoff, if it's made very well, more likely it is to withstand the impact. Okay, so I've pretty much shown that. I don't have to really add anything there and mess with that. So we could do a trigger modification pretty easily. This trigger pull is kind of long. Just to show, I'm sorry, I have a hard time finding the camera here. You can see the trigger pull is kind of long. So there, it's all the way back. Watch right here. And as I go forward, that would be the count as the trigger pull to get to the trolley. So that's a little bit far, but not too bad. So I'm not going to do any modifications there, because if I made it a light trigger pull, you'd have the issue of this thing right here. This thing right here being at the wrong position, so your semi would have problems functioning. So basically, working on a hair trigger mod, you have to keep in line with that, and there's some things that you have to work with the trigger. So we're not going to do any of that stuff. We're just going to leave it stock on that part. And let's zoom out real quick. Okay, now let's do some other work real quick and check around. Let's check this. And this is what I do a lot of the time, is I check things, because that way when I do the finished work, when it's all put together, I know as soon as I pull the trigger there shouldn't be a freaking issue. So I pull this out and I put this in. And basically what I'm doing is I'm checking the amount of pressure that it applies to the bevel gear. If it applies so much, that's okay. You don't want an insane amount, but you want to make sure it applies it. Now this spring looks like it's either been clipped, it broke off a piece, or it's made that way. So the pressure it applies is not so much. You can see if it was shooting in fast pace, unless I can put the spring down there, then I can get more pressure. It all depends. I mean, this spring could be, let me zoom up on this part too, kind of explain the, right here you can see where the spring is, and I could move that up above and it will have less power to grab on. This isn't so bad. It'll also make it less likely to pop out while working on the gearbox and getting ready to close it. That's not an issue for me. I can put it at the tighter spot. But what you want to check for definitely is that it's working properly. So you want to rotate your gears and hear it click, which I can. And you want to close the gearbox shell and tighten it. And you may also want to try this in the body eventually. The reason for that is because what was I going to say? I forgot. Oh, tightening. Especially if you put it in different types of anti-reversal latches, excuse me. Different types of anti-reversal latches are different sizes. They could be wider. So if they're wider, they get stuck in the gearbox shell. They can't move freely, and you have to do modification. to the anti-reversal latch or the shell. Now what you want to do is look down here and see where the cutoff is. Cutoff is right here, and make sure that it's working. So you want to spin the gears, and you should hear it click. Sounds like a minigun kind of thing. My friend and I talk about that a lot, especially when you're working on some fast AEGs with a cutoff like that. It makes a lot of noise. But when does it catch and how fast does it catch? As soon as I turn it, it's caught. So you can hear it. It's working, but we need to close up the gearbox tight in this area to see how well it's working. So go ahead and tighten the thing real quick. And you want to check it. You also want to look at how well it attaches to the bevel gear, because if it's not attaching very well, or if it gets obstructed by the pinion, hits into the pinion, then you're going to have a real issue. Do not know why, but this last screw up here at this area, the screw gets kind of a pain in the ass. I have to go real far backwards to even tighten it. Okay, so that goes really smooth, and it locks right away. Now while looking at it, oh, contact is beautiful. Just to show how beautiful it is, you can see how good that is. It's basically right at the bottom, still got 100% contact. It's not in the middle of the gear, but it's still 100% contact. And it applies just enough pressure to lock on the bevel gears. Or bevel gear, excuse me, bevel gears. So let's go ahead and reopen this real quick. And we'll start getting this together and probably pop this in here so you can get some shooting going on last night, but tomorrow. Okay, I have Dremeled out the cylinder head right here in this area, so it does fit and not get stuck like crazy, so you can't just like, oh my god, it's caught. It doesn't get caught anymore. I'm going to check compression with a new O-ring and a new piston for now, spare. It's not going to be the actual piston I'm putting on. I'm putting another blue Lonex, but this one I'm going to keep for testing purposes. So we're going to move that piston head. Let's get a piston real quick. I guess we're going to use this one. Yep, should be usable. It's just going to be a spare until I get the other one, so I'm going to go ahead and angle engagement correct this after I get this installed. So we're going to remove some weight here, just because I have some suspicion that this thing shoots too fast with the weak spring, and because of that, let's stay away from the motor. As powerful this motor is, I'm going to put it on the floor. Okay, so here we go here. Let's take these out. So we're taking out the ball bearings, and you can feel how heavy this is. So we're going to take that out. And then at the same time, we're going to take out this O-ring and replace it. It's a little brittle. There's too much grease in here on this. It's kind of nasty. Kind of nasty. Well, you still don't go. So kind of cracks in your glass out. And it's all over in the piston head now. Position front. That's the best I get. Cleans out to get a lot of work. Okay, that's the best right now. Let's go ahead and put this on here. And what I'm doing is checking to see I think I need to Dremel. Dang it. I need to take this and Dremel the top here. It's too long. So what happens is you put the cylinder head on and it's not flat. So that's a bad thing. Let's go ahead and Dremel that real quick. Okay, to make work really precise, I'm going to use a file for the last bit. So we remove the second tooth right there. And what that does, sorry, I'm kind of checking stuff. What that does is prevent, especially with the higher speed or the very little bit of angle of engagement put in these AEGs, they barely scrape that tooth, or when they're really fast they recoil, and during that recoil process they grab this tooth. And so to make this angle of engagement very reliable, we're accounting for that to not happen, because I'm making it not possible for it to happen. So we're going through the top here. Top's nice and flat now. Yep. Looks pretty beautiful. You want a nice flat top. I could probably use this piston for this gun, but I don't think I'm going to continue to. Let's go ahead and file it real quick. I use the filing for the last part because it makes it nice and smooth. You want it to be nice and smooth. Not that it usually really matters, but the teeth do that contact. You don't want to remove too much, because what happens is the pressure goes on just the pickup, and that's a really bad thing. If you put it on just the pickup alone, it's going to break the other teeth, which could have possibly happened. To best explain that, what happens is it's trying to get right here, and it's just going to chop this. And that's what could have happened to the other piston, is that too much was removed and it chopped it. So I will check that as soon as I make this very flush. So we've got some dirt in there. So what am I doing? The quick and easy way to clean. Throw some silicone on it, and you can start wiping out the dirt right away. Makes it much easier to clean it. I can just run over to the water, but I'm just going to do this. One of my little tricks. You can already tell right away it looks much better. Alright. Just to show. Come on, focus. Why don't you focus? Alright, there we go. So, looks good. About right there. Now without these washers, what I want to do, and the bearings, is check the inside too. So I'm preventing more possible breaking. What I'm doing is checking how much slippage there is. Okay. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any. So it's all good. It's all good. Alright, and last I'm going to do is add the tiniest bit of red lock. Tight. In comparison, this one's nicer. It's got too much oil on this one. It's got some of that gear grease probably on it. Okay. Let's see how this goes around the cylinder head. Ooh, fits better, fits nicer. Alright, put this on here. And then go ahead and hook up into. Put it in there. Alright, that's good. So this one. So it's hanging out. Nice, it drop. This also prevent from more than that shaking. I think it's really stuck. It's like bottom half of the after shaking though. I guess it's stuck. Okay. Piston head can rotate. Usually for me it cannot rotate. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a bad thing or not. I would think that as it hits, comes back, there's not going to really be too much rotation. But I can't go any tighter because of the design. I'd have to modify it myself. But it looks okay, so let's go ahead and just getting rid of that more of that crappy grease. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and test this real quick. Where's the cylinder? This looks good. I'm going to test it here. So the other O-ring was way too much restriction. This one might be too loose, so we're going to find out in a second. As soon as I get this on. Oh, this will be good. Especially with silicone oil. Silicone oil? Alright. Now to check the O-ring on the air nozzle. Gotta check that. It does not need to be changed out, just needs to be lubed. It's all good. Okay, so that's good. So now what we want to do is check how it goes in here and the angle of engagement that it has. We can take this out for now. This anti-first latch is kind of moving out. All right. So what you want to do is first apply the spring. Excuse me, this isn't even in correctly. There we go. Make sure it's in there correctly. And that the cylinder is in there good. Looks like it almost scrapes the tooth. What you want to do, excuse me, what you want to do in this case is it almost scrapes the tooth. What you want to do is install a spring. So here it is. And check it. And it does not hit the tooth. And what you want to do is also move the piston down with your finger, hold it tight to the sector, and see if it can scrape it. Not even close. So, because it's not going to be held down anyways. So when this hits, this should be good for angle of engagement. So now you want to take this out. Again, that feels weak to me, this spring, so, but looks good there. Alright, let's go ahead and start installing everything else real quick. Zoom out just a little bit so we can see all that I'm going to do. What do you need? Let's try this again. Take this out. That was fast.
Yeah, I have no problem. I hope your oatmeal and beef.
Sounds perfect. Practice controls are installed almost. Yeah, I'm just doing that. Okay, that's installed. Now we have a picture. If it's installed that. And this, and this. So here. Usually one of the most painful things on these processes is the trigger spring. So usually it depends on the person. Me, I don't usually have an issue. And the way this is made, the spring sits right on top. See, that's beautiful. So it should be pretty easy to install this. What I want to do is use screwdriver helping. Also, I want to do is sector out a little bit.
Okay, good thing. I have to go upstairs.
See, get this in there. The hardest thing, another easy thing, should be easy. It's not rotating the way we want to do. So let's do it now. So, one here's rotate your back a little bit. What it does is it allows it to press into the sector. So it's locked into the sector. So what I'll do is unlock it and put it in position. So lock the sector, so hold it in position. You can see that. So you can see what I'm doing. Okay, anyway, sir, increasing things, let's together. Just left here. See if the sector can hold itself. It does seem to. Yeah, let's go. Stay in position. Top sector. So it's trying to move really far away. The string on this is really tough. I put something hold this for me. But should be okay. Actually, that's holding well. Got locked in position. I'll stop working with it. Now I'm saying is the gears and need to be installed in positive way. Actually, no, not positive. So I can use positive because I've got everything here. Okay, slowly start taking stuff out and greasing. Usually press on the bottom on each teeth. And the reason for this is so that the shins will not move too much on this point. You guys done? Done. Greasing this part of here so that that plate. Right. And the top for the shins. Don't move too much. And then you shins move a little bit. And the shins move. Now basically, just rotate around and get grease on sort here. However, I want the sun on the bottom, just around the axle, just right here. To hold the shin in place, just right there, and then on top too. And just around the whole thing. And that's it. And then rev slightly. Oh, more trash, okay. Alright, it's all done now. Insert salt things. Alright, do this part. That is awesome pressure on that part, so you can also probably press go too much in that right now, so there. Alright, so it's the last part, and don't thing. That piece in. Loose. Shit. Didn't touch that. Okay, that should be everything. Question, do we get this on? I think we can, after it's closed out. I'll remember, kind of open and close real quick. There's a trying to but nothing to me. that's it now. Everything's closed. Everything looks good. Let's see if we get this on. For sure we can. Now go ahead and lock down the box. Alright, this one, I'm going to check everything that's not working. That flies very well, very nicely. Everything is coming into play. I'll check the gear here. Yeah, no, still slidey, everything is all checked in, good to go. So, essentially very beautiful. So where's the last screws? It's them all together now. And we'll sheet up this in. It's easy to do. Okay, so we need to do everything else. I'll grip their lock. So the lock's gonna suck. Go and slide the sleepers. That piece. That's that piece. All right. Now this screw here. And you barely missed the wiring right there. I think actually, so there's two small screws. I'm not sure what these are for. Oh, you can go this. Not sure. Anyways, I think I need more of the Loctite. Take that out there. And throw this on here. Whatever possible it is. Alright, let's check something in this position. This way. This ring in here. That's why I went there. This is tight first. Now this. This. Right there. Okay, it's all good. Now these screws went. I'm not sure yet. I don't remember. I was doing the same day. Bad memory. It's not good. It's good. Perfect. Alright, now where these things go, remember. That's all good. 100%. That's really good. Alright, where these screws go, remember. I think it's the body, yeah. With the size, remember. Okay. Why don't you tissue? Test her out. Test her out. What am I supposed to do? I cannot remember for the life of me. I need my tester. Okay, hook this up to this. Got that. This needs to be hooked up here. So this and this needs to be hooked up here, and now just to the battery. Right. And now we're gonna start shooting this thing. And we can read the amperage right away. I don't want my fingers to get clipped by the gears, so I'm kind of just holding it. Gonna go to full auto. Okay, amperage readings. Temperature readings right under 20. Let's see if we can get semi. Look at how much on the trigger response. So I'm not getting any pre-engagement because it would have pre-engaged real fast, like instantly. But this is nice right here already. This is beautiful. Okay, we're going to leave it like that for now. So I'm getting under 20 amps. The motor is barely warm after that. The wiring, there is nothing warm. This is going to be very efficient because it is well shimmed. It's got some nice thick wiring. This is ready to almost go pretty much. I need to take this out and shoot though to show how badass it is right now. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect everything. So we need a 20 amp fuse at least with your battery right here, just to kind of talk about the electrical side so you understand. 1200 mouse times 20, so that's about 24. You need a 20 amp fuse, and then you'd have to, you're not spiking at over 20, you're spiking right under 20. So this battery is okay to use. That's why nothing's getting hot, is because it's sending enough of the electrons through here. So let's explain a little bit of what's going on here. The way this MOSFET works is this is a trigger, or excuse me, the contacts right there sends a gate. It's just a very small electrical current that hits into the MOSFET here, and it tells it to turn on or off for what you need. Active braking is enabled, but you can disable it very easily through the settings. You'll see the green end. You'll see the lights come on right here, just to show you how nice this MOSFET is. And you can channel through these and turn on and off, and you can even turn on burst fire. So if you want burst fire with this thing, you can even have burst fire, so that's going to be nice. But I'm going to have to see if it'll all fit in the body. Anyways, this is beautiful. I don't know how you're not going to like this. This is going to be very nice. Alright, let's explain any of the last things we have to do with here. Your battery sends the electrons through the wiring. Your wiring is more than 18 gauge. When you get higher up to the 16 gauge, it's not as hot, so you can have low resistance even getting hot. But we are not using the small gauge, we're using a pretty big gauge, so this is working well. You can see the trigger response is instantaneous, efficient, very efficient, even for an SHS. It is slightly warm right now. I mean, you can barely feel it. So the MOSFET here does have active braking, does have burst control. It does have a fuse protection built into it, but it's 160 amps, which I don't understand why Murph did this for whatever reason. But basically, what you need to have is your own fuse protection. So I'm going to make a 20 amp fuse and keep it with this, and then we'll chrono this thing on another day. I have to spend some time with that. I'll take this apart in another video, show how the piston's looking. There shouldn't be any pre-engagement because it didn't happen at all. The only thing that happened is the wear. It's a garter piston. It's not really great piston, so new blue low neck Swiss cheese and everything in there will be nice. But overall, this is already great. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off for now. And say that big thumbs up. I'm pretty sure you're going to like how this is going already. Catch you guys later. Bump you with a fist.